All right, welcome back as always to the YouTube channel. So what we're going to talk about today is anxiety. And one of the things that can be a little bit strange to hear from a counselor, or I get a little bit of quizzical looks in regards to in my office, is this phrase right here, right? So I want you to feel anxious. Um, you know, Anxiety is a very useful emotion. Anxiety mobilizes a lot of action and prepares us for things to come. Anxiety can have the volume turned up on it too loud, where it starts to become clinically significant. Right? What I mean by clinically significant is if the anxiety gets to a place where it starts to damage your health, your relationships, your job performance, things like that, then it's time for that anxiety to be managed differently and for you to develop a different relationship to that anxiety. So in order to develop a different relationship to anxiety or to understand it deeper, I think it's useful to talk about it in three different ways. Right, so we have a normative anxiety, we have an existential anxiety, and then we have a neurotic type of anxiety. Firstly, right, we'll talk about that normative anxiety, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here in the beginning of the video, is the anxiety that's useful and the anxiety that prepares us for things to come. So take for instance, you have a big test tomorrow or a deadline due with something at work, and it's the night before, you haven't studied or you haven't done anything as far as completing the tasks required for the deadline. So the anxiety that comes up then is a useful anxiety that is helpful to feel. It's trying to mobilize the body to feel like something's wrong in order for you to rectify the situation, right? So that type of anxiety, I very much so want you to feel. And that type of anxiety sometimes I hear complaints about, and people wanting to medicate it or escape from it. And I think that you do yourself a disservice to avoid that type of normative anxiety. All right, so that being said, we have normative anxiety. And then moving into existential anxiety. Existential anxiety can feel very terrifying. It can be an anxiety that sparks a lot of panic or panic attacks. And existential anxiety has to do with the feeling that something is wrong or there's a threat to death, right? So like your life, a threat to your freedom, a threat to isolation, or a threat to meaning in your life, right? So death, freedom, isolation, and meaning. If your anxiety specifically relates to any one of those four aspects or a mixture of those aspects, I think that it's best to place it under this compartment of existential anxiety. Existential anxiety is best explored, I believe, with a therapist, and being able to lean into, explore, and discover some of the solutions or possible explanations behind that existential anxiety. All right, so we have normative anxiety and existential anxiety, and then we move to neurotic anxiety. So neurotic anxiety really is the anxiety that is the most debilitating, right? So if anxiety, simply put, is this general feeling that something is wrong, right? Neurotic anxiety is that feeling even in the presence of no evidence for that feeling. So neurotic anxiety can be felt even when all things are good, right? So when all things are maintained and managed well, there really is no ping of discomfort when we talk about existential issues, right? Like death, freedom, isolation, and meaning. And neurotic anxiety can be treated with medicine. It can be treated in a number of different ways. But I think, again, we do ourselves a little bit of a disservice if we start to tackle neurotic anxiety only with medication. A lot of anxiety medications like benzodiazepines and other things like that can be very habit-forming. So I think that you deserve, if you experience that level of neurotic anxiety, right, that general feeling that something is wrong or that you're not safe, you deserve to come in with a counselor and to talk about and explore some behavioral strategies that might be able to tone down that neurotic anxiety to a place where you're able to listen to anxiety as a useful emotion and not have it be the loudest voice in the room or the loudest voice in your experience. So that's just a little bit about anxiety and how I conceive it with clients in the office. If you have any questions or comments, comment down below. And as always, I think I can help. It'd be an honor to start working with you, and take care.